Hello guys and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Charity Wanyoni and today I'm wearing my mental health advocate hat. And today we are going to add another episode in our Food for Thought series, and today we're going to talk about food guilt, shame and the diet culture trap. So please stay tuned. I hope you'll enjoy this episode. I'm very passionate about nutrition and mental health and just how food plays a role in our overall well-being. So I'm having my breakfast. I'm having a late breakfast as I prepare to go to work. So this will not be a long episode, and I want this to be an interactive session. So leave in the comment section what are your thoughts about food guilt, food shame, and what you'll have learned from this episode. Please subscribe, follow me across all my social media platforms. I really appreciate it. I want to get back to digital content creation and I want to be very intentional about it. So welcome. I'm going to start with why this conversation matters. For me, from years of looking at TikTok and the whole food and our relationship with food and how our wellness culture is. I feel like food is often moralized in modern wellness culture, and turning everyday eating into a reflection of character rather than nourishment. You are what you eat and all that. So many people don't realize that guilt around food is learned and not natural, because as you were growing up, just think back to those days when you were younger. Was there something like food guilt that you always do, Jakula? You used to eat everything your mom prepared, and then over time, as you continue to grow, develop, and how you are right now, I feel like the food guilt has come from the constant messaging of what body image, what you're supposed to eat, what I eat in a day, the 1,200 kilocalorie diet, and all that. And for me, I feel like it's not biology, because if you really go and dig deep into what nutrition is, it's all about nourishment and not just some condition we are subjected to. So this guilt can quietly shape our mental health, our self-esteem, and also our eating patterns over the years. At some point, I think in my campus days, I had disordered eating. I do not want to talk about that, but I feel like my eating and dietary patterns have really changed over the years. And diet culture thrives on control, fear, and perfectionism, or being a perfect and just not overall well-being. And I want us to differentiate between an actual healthy eating and what diet culture is. And understanding this will help us replace the blame without I need to replace the blame with awareness and compassion, and that is what this Food for Thought series is all about. So let's define what food guilt is, because we have to understand what we're going to talk about. We also look at what food shame is. So food guilt is the feeling of having done something wrong by eating certain type of foods or amount. Have you ever got yourself, like right now I'm having my breakfast, and then after I eat my breakfast, I'm going to feel guilty about what is on my plate. I do not want to do that, and it often manifested as self-criticism, regret, or the urge to compensate through restriction or excessive exercise. And for me, it's usually replaced by excessive exercising, because for me, I don't subscribe to that school of restriction. I always just want to over exercise. Yeah. So guilt is not about food itself, it's about the meaning we attach to eating. So if I'm eating this breakfast and then I feel guilty about it, it's not about the food, is how I'm feeling, or I've attached the meaning to what I am eating. So over time, feelings of food guilt become automatic and internalized. And then this emotional response can override hunger cues and enjoyment of food. So that disorder your relationship with food. That's why there's some people who really have a negative relationship with food, and that is where most of this disordered eating stems from. So diet culture doesn't just come from somewhere or it just appears out of nowhere. No, it comes from us being constantly told that some foods are good and bad. So there's labeling of good versus bad, creating a moral hierarchy. This is good and this is bad. And for me, once you start labeling food bad, you already have a bad relationship with that particular food. So with focused health messaging equates body size with discipline, worth, and success. And I'm really keen on holistic. We're going to look at what holistic health is and what holistic nutrition is. Because these days, with a lot of weight focused health, the rise of Ozempic, the rise of GPL medication for weight loss, and there's just a whole world out there. And I feel like it really makes people have disordered eating or body image issues. If you're doing it with the right message in mind or the right goal in mind, then I have no problem with that. But once it becomes a diet culture, sometimes I feel like it really puts pressure on other people. So childhood experiences, especially as the early 2000, there was praise for thinness, and I feel like looking back, the thinness is coming back. Or a pressure to eat a certain way play a role, especially if you're on TikTok and you're constantly consuming what I eat in a day, the calories are in a food, or that it can really mess up with your mind. Social media reinforces unrealistic clean eating standard, and then healthcare system sometimes unintentionally reinforces shame instead of support. Especially if you find someone who is not supportive, empathy, lead with empathy as a professional. So why moral labels are harmful? This is my own thoughts. If you have your own thoughts, you can leave them in the chat box or comment section. I'll be able to respond so that we can get this conversation talking. So labeling food as bad increases desire and obsession and not control. That's why when you're counseling someone, for me, I usually make sure I encourage more of what is healthy, compared to labeling things bad. Do not eat, do not do this. I feel like hata mi nikiambiwa do not do this, do not, I start to have a bad relationship or a negative relationship or feel some type of way. So people tend to overeat food and then they feel guilty about it. Especially now, if you have those cravings and then you end up eating, or you end up aversing those cravings, and then when you finally have access to that particular food, you end up eating and then you end up feeling guilty afterward. So this label disconnect eating from nourishment and pleasure. Moralizing food leads to like sort of black and white thinking, you know like instead of flexibility, because there are days where you'll eat healthy and there are days where your body just needs some tender love and care. So allowing for that flexibility really creates a sustainable system and dynamic for you. So this mindset increases anxiety around meals and social eating, especially people living with these chronic conditions, the NCD, sometimes especially diabetes. They're really scared when they go to like a social setting when there's a lot of food, because they will start to question what they're supposed to eat, what they're supposed to do, and all that. So we're going to look at the difference between food guilt and food shame. So with food guilt, it will say I did something wrong, and then food shame will say there's something wrong with me. So the shame is coming from you, the guilt is coming from the meaning you have attached to the food, as you've seen in the previous slide. So shame is deeper and more damaging to mental health than guilt, because most of the time shame, when you do something shameful, you'll always want to go and hide, you'll always want to isolate, and just do things where people are not watching. So food shame often leads to secrecy, isolation, and this is where the root cause of most of this disordered eating, anorexia, bulimia, picky eating, binge eating behaviors. So it reduces self-trust and increases emotional distress. And then shame thrives in silence, and judgment are not healing. So when you're having those disordered eating, most of the time they feel shameful. If you've ever encountered a disordered eating, you will see there's shame. There's not even food guilt. Like let's say someone with binge eating, they eat and eat and eat and eat until they cannot eat anymore. There's no guilty there, and then afterward they feel shame, and that is more damaging to their mental health. So the psychological cost of the food shame, it increases anxiety and depressive symptoms. It erodes your self-esteem and creates a constant sense of failure. If you've ever felt this way, leave it in the comment section. People may avoid healthcare or nutrition support due to fear of judgment. Nikienda nimwambie, I will feel judged. So shame activates stress responses, making regulation a little bit harder. So healing becomes difficult when food feels like it's a personal moral test. Every time you look at a plate, oh, this is what I'm supposed to eat. And I feel like, you guys, nutrition is not supposed to be hard. If nutrition is hard for you, then you're doing something wrong. That's why it's so good to reach out to certified license register new. There are many. Go to the KNDA website, log in, you'll find a lot of nutritionists who are practicing active licenses. They will help you come up with something that will perpetuate your relationship with food into a positive aspect, so that when you look at your plate, you don't feel shame, you don't feel guilty, and you don't feel like you have to constantly choose this and constantly choose that. It's so tiring, guys. Even for me, who has the background in food and knows what food does and all that, but sometimes I still feel food shame, and it's the moral aspect of making food be like this compass is supposed to do. It's tiring. It's very, very tiring. So let's go to understanding the biology. So when you're restricting your body, you're increasing your stress hormones. We already talked about cortisol, but we'll talk about cortisol, I think, next episode, so that you can understand what cortisol is. So the brain becomes more focused on food when it gets perceived scarcity. When your body feels like, why there's a starvation mode coming, um, it hoards food, and this leads to intense craving and loss of control later when you get the food. Those are people who stay a day or the whole day without eating. When you get that food, my you're going to devour that food, because you will not have control. You'll be hungry, you'll be craving and all that. So the cycles reinforce shame: restrict, binge, guilt, restrict. And I know most of us feel this. You restrict the food. Later, when you find it, you binge eat. You feel guilty afterwards. You go back to restricting, and then become like a cycle where you, like a loop you're stuck in. Yeah. So this is not a lack of willpower; it's predictable biological response. So I wanted you to understand this clearly, because I want you to do healthy eating in a healthy way. That's why you reach out to a nutritionist. Let them help you. They are there. They love their work, right? So please reach out to them. So the cycle continues. The food, when we forbid food, let me use fries, because my fries is my guilty pleasure food. Um, they become like mentally poor, because I'm like, why am I restricting fries? I don't know if you guys ever felt that way. So eating them feel urgent rather than mindful, and people tend to eat past comfort because tomorrow I'll restrict again. Like, I have this opportunity to eat this fries because tomorrow I'm not going to eat, so I'm going to you overindulge. This pattern damages trust in one's body, and then long term it increases emotional eating rather than reducing it. That's why when you look at the episode where I talked about emotional eating, this just reinforces what I talked about. If you've not, please go and look at that episode. I really talked at length about what emotional eating is, and it ties down to what food shame, food guilt, and the diet culture is. So for me, I don't encourage restriction. I just display, because when you're eating and you once in a while throw in those craving, those comfort food, your body will not crave them as much as you starving them. And then when you find them, you're going to eat, because you know you're going to restrict yourself, and then you feel guilty. You feel shameful because you've broken your diet and diet culture and all that. Not to go into those sciencey and political, because for me diet culture sometimes is very, very political. So, not permission to ignore health. So, food neutrality removes moral value from food choices. It allows food to be evaluated based on nourishment, satisfaction, and context. Neutrality creates a space for informed choices without shame. And I feel like when you go to a nutrition session or a nutrition counseling session, you'll be able to be taken through the importance of most of these food groups. You'll be able to be explained what the benefits are and how to actually indulge and consume them and make a sustainable choice without you feeling guilty or shameful about eating a certain food. It supports consistency over perfectionism or perfectionist or perfection. Health becomes about patterns and not punishment, guys. I feel like sometimes we do so much damage when we hide, or we, I don't know, me that culture, I don't subscribe to such. I really do a lot of research when it comes to that culture. I feel like that culture makes us really self-conscious about our health until you start to count calories too much. You make it an obsession, and it stops being fun. And when something stops being fun, you stop doing it completely, and you'll go back to your old habits. So just shifts that can really help you, because I'm also on that journey. I've learned to replace I was bad with I made a choice. Like, I made a choice to eat those fries. Um, I view food as information, not because I'm a nutritionist, Because of course, because I'm a nutritionist, I am very informed. I read food labels, I look at what is in the food, the ingredients, how the food was made. I'm not in an obsessive way, I just need to know. I'm not a addict on self-control, like I have to control everything, because sometimes I find myself not eating a food that I have not prepared myself. That is how sometimes hectic it gets. So I ask myself, how can I make my body feel, instead of, was this allowed? Like once upon a time in my cycle, I just feel like I need some tender love and care. I will go and pamper my body. I will not think about, was this allowed or not. Understand that all food can fit in different contexts. You're not going to overindulge in those cravings or comfort food all the time. You're going to still maintain your healthy eating foods and nutrient dense food. It's just how to understand that different food, different context, and curiosity is more effective than criticism. Just remember that, yes. So as we move towards, because I told you in my previous episode, this year my intentional word is self-healing. So just few steps towards healing. Self-trust grows when restriction is reduced and consistency improves. When you replace, you trust yourself not to do harm your body, so that you not restrict to a point where you start hating what you're doing. You improve consistency because you'll build discipline. You'll be able, sometimes for me, I can see fries and not eat them. I can perceive the smell and not buy them and not go to them, because I've been building discipline and know, like, this is not the right time for me to eat fries, and then this is the right time for me to just indulge them, and I make them myself. Yeah, so listening to hunger and fullness cues become easier over time. I talked about the hormones ghrelin and leptin. When you do all this restriction, sometimes it can mess with the hunger hormones, so that it can blur your hunger and fullness cues. So when they become inverted, you don't know when to stop. You just continue eating. When you listen to them and you rectify them, your hunger and fullness cues become easier for you to understand. Emotional awareness matters more than nutritional knowledge. I'm not saying nutritional knowledge is, I mean, emotional awareness matters as much as nutritional knowledge. So, nutritional knowledge is very important, but for me, EQ, emotional awareness, is just as important as that, because if you're emotionally aware, you'll be able to know, like, I'm really punishing my body. A system support, not isolation, is healing. Or isolate. Reach out to these coaches, reach out to a therapist if you feel like you cannot do it by yourself. Reach out to a nutritionist, they're there to help you. Progress looks like flexibility and not perfectionism. You're able to adapt as per the situation, as per the changes. So as we wind up the episode, my call to action to you guys: food was never meant to be a moral test. Remember that. Guilt and shame don't create health, safety, and understanding, but understanding does. When you understand yourself, you're aware, you'll be able to know, okay, I'm spiraling, this is food shame, this is food guilt. A sustainable nutrition supports both mental and physical well-being, and healing your relationship with food is not giving up, it's growing, and you deserve nourishment without judgment. So leave in the comment section what your thoughts about this episode. Have you ever experienced food shame, food guilt?